you so much. Thank you, DJ Izzy. Thank you so much, Music Exchange, for having me today. It really means a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I come as a contributor, but more than that, I come as a student as well. And I feel that Music Exchange is probably one of the most important events in South Africa for creatives or anybody that's interested in the industry, even if you are participating as well. And if you've been in it for quite a long time, yes, there's a lot of value and a lot of things to learn and unpack as well, because things are constantly evolving. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story, and I hope that somebody can extract something out of the story. And please feel free to ask questions when we get to the end of me chatting away. So just to give everybody some context, I've received the title Grandmaster. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around all of that, because it comes with a whole lot of different layers and a whole lot of things to speak about. So with that being said, I just want to backtrack very quickly in terms of where things started for me. I grew up not too far from where we are, in District 6. My family were among the last to be evicted and moved due to the previous apartheid government's Group Areas Act policy. So we felt the repercussions of that. But as a kid growing up in District 6, I was exposed to so many different genres of music, everything from soul, disco, jazz music, the commercial sounds of the day, reggae music, the traditional music, the Cape Malay choirs, the Guma music. So I think in that sense, I've been very, very blessed to experience all of that. Moving out of District 6 took us to a place called Lentegeur, out in Mitchell's Plain. So that's where I grew up for more than half of my life. I started becoming interested in music and turntables in District 6 though. I was the kid that used to play the records for the grown folk in the room. And when my sister used to come and visit, she was a teenager. That was a good excuse for me as well to eavesdrop, being this lightly playing the records, and I could listen to all of their stories. So that gave me a very, very good excuse to kind of be in on what the grown folk were talking about my older sister and the friends. Moving from Mitchell's Plain, from District 6 to Mitchell's Plain, that's kind of the time period when things changed for me. I was then introduced to this culture called hip-hop. And my first song that I encountered was a song called Rapper's Delight in 1980. And everything that was said in that song I could aspire to as a kid, because there were such a lot of things that we dreamt of having. They were talking about swimming pools and color TVs, and that was only a thing that the young boy could dream of. I didn't even know what a color TV could do or what it would look like. I thought it was a TV that came with a colorful exterior. That was a color TV. But we learned as time progressed. When hip-hop culture came along, I was very, very intrigued by the fact that all these kids that I've seen in this music video look like kids from the Cape Flats, look like kids from Mitchell's Plain. I saw them doing all these really interesting gymnastic movements known as breaking or break dancing. That blew my mind, because growing up we were introduced to kung fu movies. We used to call it post karates, where the master used to fly through the trees. They would fly down mountains and they would throw flying guillotines and do all those movements. I grew up with Bruce Lee. So we used to mimic all those things, and I thought this was like a new form of martial arts or gymnastics done to a very interesting beat. I didn't know that this was going to be called breaking or break dancing one day. And then I saw this in the same music video. This is a music video by a British musician called Malcolm McLaren, and the song was Buffalo Girls. So all of these things I saw in this music video. Then I saw this kid spray painting on the walls, and I'm like, whoa, that is freaking insane. Because I grew up with gangster graffiti on the walls. Die nomme donuts, Horsjob, die en your and you know, that's what I was exposed to. The mongrels, the achas, and all of that type of stuff. And when I saw this new type of graffiti, that of course blew my mind as well. And then I saw these guys doing this back and forth movements with the turntable, with the vinyl, and I heard this wiki, wiki, ziggy, ziggy sound, and I was like, holy Lord, what the hell is that? Because I know exactly what the equipment was, but I didn't know you could actually do that with vinyl. Of course, we attempted that and we landed in a whole lot of trouble. Breaking people's hi-fis, trying to scratch Barry White and Peaches and Herb. That was like the vibe. And that didn't sit well with our parents. And of course, there was a very, very certain way that you had to pick up the vinyl. You had to pick it up on the edges, you don't touch the vinyl with your hands. And this new style of DJing and this whole hip-hop culture just disrupted everything. It told us, no, you must put your hand on the record, you must wet your fingertips. So of course, all those hand marks and all the crazy stuff, it's going to be on the vinyl. So that was my journey from 1980 to 82, trying to learn about all this. The kid that I grew up with in Mitchell's Plain also, sorry, the 76 also relocated to Mitchell's Plain. Is a very popular DJ known as DJ Rosano out here in Cape Town City. And then another friend of mine that also lived in the road, he became known as the grandfather, the granddad, or the ultimate pioneer of graffiti culture. He goes by the name of Hoja, or the Devastator. In hip-hop back in the 80s and the 90s, and you give yourselves names like the Devastator, the Black Battle Cat, because you know, that type of stuff. You had to make a statement when you walked into the room. We formed our first hip-hop crew, known as the City Kids, doing this weird dancing. The City Kids, of course, had the DJs in it. We tried to dabble in everything that hip-hop culture could throw at us. To a point where our parents accused us of being possessed, because they said, the Bible said one day, the devil is going to possess our children and make them dance upside down on their heads. And I was like, what now? What now? So we started moving differently, we started talking differently, the swagger was different. And that was a point in my life, as it is for many, many kids and young men on the Cape Flats. There's always the gangster element. So part of my journey was moving with kids in that whole environment. So to cut a long story short, let's just say, if things had to go in that direction, I would have probably been in prison or been buried today and not sitting here to be able to address this room. So that was kind of, I would say, what was designed for young men on the Cape Flats by the previous apartheid government. One day, I was breakdancing or practicing my breakdance moves opposite my mom's house in Mitchell's Plain, because there's a primary school right opposite. I had my cardboard boxes out there and I was doing all my movements. And on that day, guys that were known as my friends actually came with the intent to kill me on that day. They saw me doing my breakdance stuff and whatever, and that actually made them change their minds. Because this guy no longer looked like a gangster, he couldn't be affiliated to anybody else. And back in the day when they say you're a cat, it means that you are neutral territory, you kind of have a neutral stance in everything. And I think that hip-hop, breaking, DJing, the music actually saved my life on that day. Our crew then expanded and it became the Monastic Rockers, because kids from Mitchell's Plain used to take a train every Saturday afternoon to come and meet up and battle with other crews right here in the city center. And this is all during the dark days of apartheid, with state of emergencies and all of that. And at the same time as all of those things are happening, we are still finding our way, I would say, through our journey as DJs and hip-hop kids, not truly knowing where this journey is going to take us. There was a lot of interesting experiences taking that train to Cape Town City, from Mitchell's Plain to Cape Town, because we were all on the Cape Flats line, and the train used to make all these stops, and kids from all the different areas used to jump on the train, and we would come to the city center, come and meet up, battle, exchange cassettes and all these things, and that is practically how the music started to circulate, specifically the hip-hop music of the day. We then got this opportunity to be a part of a matinee session in this venue called Teasers. And for people in Cape Town City, it's not the strip club. No, Teasers became the strip club years later. It was first a club that used to play reggae music, new wave music, rock, and all these different types of things. And we were introduced into that space, and it was foreign. It was foreign for me. In the space, the thing that really scared the crap out of me was the fact that there was white kids in the club. In 84, 85, it freaked me out. It was the only interactions that we had with white people was when the white cops would stop our parents and look for the door pass. And we were very intimidated. All the white inspectors would come and check if your dog had a license, if you had a TV license or a radio license. So that was kind of like my memory, and just remembering interacting with white people. In this club, we had all these white kids, and I was like, gee, we're going to prison. This thing is not going to end well. Anyway, long story short, in this club we were given a 10-minute session to break. The 10 minutes became 20 minutes because now more young people around the Cape Town started to know about this. They then gave the DJs an opportunity to play longer sets. And from there, things started to evolve, and I think that kind of laid the foundation for the culture, not just in Cape Town City, but across our country, so we can practically trace a lot of that, the ciphers and all those things that came from the streets and came through club teasers, and of course the music evolved as well. So we were in a space where we were playing all this cutting-edge music, sounds that you wouldn't hear on the radio. I think commercial radio only caught up 10 years afterwards, when we were busy exchanging the tapes and playing this music at all the different parties. When the first commercial hip-hop appeared on radio, it was Vanilla Ice, Ice Baby. That was when the radio actually caught up with what was happening. So there was a youth movement taking place, and through the movement there was also a level of consciousness, because the music started to evolve from Rapper's Delight, things started to change, and it was very interesting because it was running parallel to what was taking place in South Africa. So yes, we were exposed to more of the American and the British music at the time. And it just happened that South Africa started to change. It started to become extremely violent. And the state of emergencies was started to be put in place, where us as communities, we couldn't move from one area to the next at certain times because they had lockdowns or shutdowns as well. So during that period of time, we were exposed to bands such as Public Enemy. They came with songs that were speaking about Fear of the Black Planet, Shut Them Down, and all these things. And at that time, our anthem was a song by NWA. Not sure if everybody knows. Eazy-E was a member of NWA, Niggas with Attitude, and they had a song called Fuck the Police, and that became our anthem, because we were harassed by the police all the time. We had guns put in our faces by these military blockades. All we wanted to do was go to the club, DJ, and break, and do what young men wanted to do at that time. So there's a lot that actually happened with those experiences. I'm going to try and go through a timeline as quickly as I possibly can, because there's so many different layers to the story and so many people that's been a part of the journey as well. The state of emergencies happened, the blockades happened, the riots happened, South Africa erupted. From 86, we now moving to 89, 1990. We then relocated from Club Teasers into a space called The Base, which is now at 88 Short Market Street, and now it's a commercial club known as Club Destiny. And that was practically sacred ground, a holy ground for the hip-hop culture, a space known as The Base. Out of The Base, many prominent individuals came out of that space. Black Noise came out of there, Goddessa came out of there, Jam B came out of there, and of course POC, Prophets of the City, came out of there. And thankfully I was one of the founder members of Prophets of the City. And the reason why Prophets of the City came together was because of all the experiences that we had at Club Teasers and what transpired in the country at the time. So during the time that Prophets of the City was about to form, I entered my first DJ competition, the DMC Championships. And all of that came together at a period when I did not have the proper DJ equipment. So I had a little wooden turntable. I was working at the Cape City Council, and a lot of my little equipment and my resources were made from cut-offs from out in the workshop, such as my record cleaners, my slip mats and all these things. And a friend of mine donated a little wooden turntable called the Lenko L75. He donated that turntable to me so that I could at least have something to practice on. I didn't have a mixer. I had an old broken amplifier. I used to turn on its side, and I used to take the volume button. It was the round button, and that was my fader. And that's how I used to practice my scratches. My friends all persuaded me to go up against the biggest names in the country, and I didn't know where this journey was going to take me. They were all there just cheering me on, and they're like, nah, D, you got it, because of being one of the DJs at the base. They obviously saw something in me during that time. I definitely drummed up the courage and went up against these DJs, and thankfully I won my first South African DMC championship titles. Thank you so much. That was in 1989. I then managed to accomplish the same in 1990. And after that I was banned because apparently I was too good. I had to give other DJs a chance to win. But what people didn't know is the reason why I entered the competitions was because the prizes was attractive. My mother couldn't afford to buy me DJ equipment and all these fancy gear that I needed to really move forward. And long story short, more competitions, local competitions popped up where they had DJ equipment as the prizes, and that motivated me. And that's the only reason. I didn't want to go there because I wanted to flex, and I was this DJ that could scratch with his feet and his arms and do all these crazy things. So it was more the prizes that motivated me. During that period, Prophets of the City started to happen. We released our first album called Our World in late 1990, early 91. And that was a very interesting journey as well. So that was the first album where you would hear vernac, you'd hear scratching, you would hear hip-hop music being fused with jazz music, Kuma music, Afro jazz. There's so many different components linked to that particular album. And the album did really, really well for POC. Once again, I'm just going to try and fast forward as quickly as I can because it's a very long story. We released our second album called Boom Style, and that was in 92, leading up to 93. And on Boom Style is when Prophets of the City was first censored, gagged, and one of our songs were banned because we decided to do our own version of the South African national anthem, and you can imagine what that was. The young men that was out there with fuck the police and fight the power and speaking about everything going on in the country. And for us, it was very, very important to represent all the elements of the culture through the music and through the live shows. So in terms of being a DJ, we used the turntable as one of the key instruments. So we would lay down a lot of scratches, work out all these different scratch phrases, and we'd figure out ways to make the music interesting. We then released our third album in 1994. 94, yeah, that's when we released our third album called The Age of Truth. And this is the album that represents so much, and it's an album that's been studied in academic circles and it's been documented. For the content of the album, I would say the brazen, explicit content on the album that practically goes up against what was happening in the country. And at that time, we were busy touring South Africa as Prophets of the City, and the tour that we embarked on was a tour called the Voter Education Tour. We were teaching our communities and young people about voting, why they should vote, and also how they should go about voting. So we had mock voting booths and ballot papers and all these things. The show and the music was composed on that as well. So that's what we did. It took us all the way from Cape Town City right through into Alex, into Soweto. It took us across our borders into Botswana. And it was a very, very dangerous time for people to say something and to be politically opinionated, because so many of our people were assassinated during that time through the CCB, that was the hit squads. And we needed to do something very extreme and practically arm ourselves to the teeth. So there was a lot of weapons in the combi because of that. That was just the nature of the beast and the times that we lived in. Prophets of the City released The Age of Truth, and the whole album became banned. Prophets of the City was booked to play at Nelson Mandela's inauguration. I just want to backtrack very quickly. We actually met Madiba just before he became president, and there's an argument whether we met him in Elsa's River or Khayelitsha. My memory says Khayelitsha. And the photo that was taken is practically the photo that was used as our campaign photo. And that picture was taken by Mr. Rashid Lombard, may soul rest in peace. Very, very popular pic. And the gentleman, of course, he was one of the catalysts for the Cape Town Jazz Festival. And I see a lot of people in the room that actually worked with him. We met Madiba there. That became the campaign poster. Prophets of the City released Age of Truth. The word got out in the industry that these guys are completely against a new South Africa. That wasn't the case. We were just very anxious, we were very cautious, and we were very concerned about what might happen and what we could see coming down the pipeline. Didn't sit well because the National Party government was like, no, we can't have colored boys calling themselves black. And now they go to Joburg and they still got 2 black members in the band. How does that work? So, apart from, I would say, the political components around that, another layer was added to the cultural components, because now we had Sotho, Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, and all of those dialects injected into the music in '94. So if we want to trace back the roots of vernac again, or the evolution thereof, or the inclusiveness of more of our languages, we can go back to the Age of Truth as well. So a lot of those projects kind of lay the foundation for so much that we are able to experience in South Africa. Long story short, all of those things are taking place. Prophets of the City is then banned. Luckily, we meet up with a band that came in from the UK. Oh, sorry, we did perform at Nelson Mandela's inauguration. My bad, I just need to mention that. And that all happened through a tooth and nail fight. Our manager, Mr. Lance, put up the biggest fight. And what the event organizers decided is, you can't come with a band and you can't come with your turntables. So they thought that that would actually make us quit the performance. And I always tell people what they did not know is that we had a guy in our crew called Jazzmo. Jazzmo, the human beatbox, and he could make music and beats with his mouth, and that's how we performed at Madiba's inauguration. So the show went on. And then the irony is, Prophets of the City is still, I would say, officially banned in South Africa. We ended up performing at the inauguration of Thabo Mbeki as well. So the only hip-hop group to perform at inaugurations of 2, I would say, of South Africa's really key presidents. After being banned, late '94, moving on to '95, we then relocated to the UK. And that opened up a completely new world for us as a group, and also for me as a DJ as well. Because a lot of what I aspire to, I could see DJs doing that in real life in front of me. And that also, I learned so much from that, because other than that, we tried to study the VHS tapes of back in the day. And for those that had VHS video machines, we know the challenge that it was to try and rewind and pause, and then the machine eats the tape, and then you've got to put it all back together again and see how you could repair it in order for you to be able to learn the next movement of the step. So that was a part of the battle. And going to the UK, it shifted everything. The level at which people operate, the way that promoters work, the way that concerts work, the type of courtesy that they receive, the open-mindedness of people, all of those things practically helped, I would say, my journey and the process, and it also helped to shape my personality and my character as well. Prophets of the City, as a band, we were very, very fortunate to end up on a lot of huge festivals. Some of the big names I can throw out there is James Brown. We opened up the James Brown in the Brixton Academy. There's Fundamental, there's the likes of Public Enemy, Ice-T, the Fugees. We had 2 interactions with them. We met them in Belgium Lauren Hill was probably one of the best people we ever met, and they decided they wanted us to open up for them in Paris a couple of weeks later. So it was those types of opportunities that helped, I would say, the growth pattern and the growth trajectory. So for me, also being an artist, producer, DJ, all of those things, of course, you know, you carry that with you, and you have those aspirations to share that with people locally and find ways for people to experience that as well. Coming back to South Africa, shortly after that, I then started getting involved with, we're going back to 90, I would say 98, 99. So Prophets of the City was based in the UK for about a year and a half. Year on year, we would travel back and forth. During that time, I decided to enter the DMC Championships again. So I won that championship title for 4 years. I managed to take it for 4 years. So those are all the things that I felt needed to happen on this journey of me being a DJ as well. Coming back to South Africa, started getting involved with cars and drifting and all these different types of things. Fast forward, we managed to find a way to create events where we integrated all these things: hip-hop music, DJ culture, street culture, the lifestyle, all these components. And fast forward through that, I ended up doing a TV show on Channel O. In fact, 2 shows. The one show was called Dead Tales with DJ Reddy D, and it was practically tapping into music, hip-hop culture, the lifestyle through, I would say, through the eyes and the experiences of a DJ. And the other one was a show called Mzansi Rides that ran for 3 seasons. It was about cars, but every opportunity that I had to bring in the music and the culture, all of those components always came into into those productions and those platforms. After those TV shows ran its course, I then got the opportunity to work on Good Hope FM, which I did for 16 years. Working at Good Hope FM practically created an opportunity for us to put together what was known as the Cypher Sessions. I was telling somebody in the room, we did a rough tally of the amount of people that came through those doors, and that was around about 2,000, just over 2,000 artists that we could track during that time. Kids coming in from all over the country, all over the world practically to be a part of the Cypher Sessions. DJ Easy was my producer on that night show, and then we also built it into the, I would say, the daytime, the primetime show. I worked that show for just about 5 years, and for us it was very, very important to find a way to take music from Cape Town City specifically and bring it onto a mainstream platform. It wasn't an easy job, it was a constant fight. And I left Good Hope FM about 4 months ago, and I'm now at the new station at KFM. So I'm starting, I would say, a new journey with new people, new mentalities, new mind states. I'm learning new things in terms of where I am. And just backtracking, going back 13 years right now, we've also decided to, between myself and my wife, register ourselves as a non-profit organization called GCAP, in order for us to be able to continue the work and also to create a level of consistency in terms of how we aid communities, especially young people. So all the experience, the lessons, I would say the essence, the drive, and the integrity behind hip-hop culture and its elements, that is practically what drives the organization. So we're currently busy with a project that took us to an area called Claremont. The pandemic took us there. So it first started off as an initiative to provide aid to a community, and we are now slowly building that into what's going to become a self-sustainable youth festival over the next couple of years. Hence us building partnerships and using our platforms to kind of speak about the work that we do through that. That's the one project, and we do have a DJ Academy as well, the Beat Bangers DJ Academy, which is running for close to 20 years right now as well. So those are all the things that's currently running. I do wear many caps, and within GCAP, I am the acting CEO at the moment. I think I'm going to call it there. We can open up the floor for questions, but there's quite a lot that I possibly missed out on. And I'm still trying to be a quiet DJ. I still try to practice as much as I possibly can. So there's a lot that I feel still needs to be accomplished.
Cool. Thank you, Dean. Okay, so this is going to be tough because I want to give people a chance to ask questions. Are you still going to hang around for a bit too or not? Okay, so Dee's going to be here, so we're not going to do every single question. If you put your hand up, we'll get there. I don't have a question, I want to have a comment. So if you're in the room and you have that Clifton and that no Camsberg kind of money and you want to see the story documented, Dee's wife is in the corner, go talk to her. Because I know I would want to watch this because I think we are aware of it. And also, commend you, Dee. I know that it's difficult. Not your memory, I'm saying just for you to put everything together and tell everything without missing certain names in certain places. But I grew up, like I said, as a fan of this guy, and then when I started working with him, it was ridiculous that I now work with the guy that I had pictures up against my wall because he was a superhero. Because growing up, people that look like me weren't in magazines and weren't on TV, but he obviously made it part, when he did it, we were like, oh, it's possible for us to do that. So yeah, if there are questions in the room, we'll deal with those now, and he will try to answer them. Do not ask him what's his favorite song. Do not ask him, can you play your cousin's song if you have a demo. Don't give us your CD, just a question. He'll try and answer it. And it doesn't have to be related to DJing, like he said, he wears a lot of hats. So I think I have a hand here, and we'll do three. Maybe not more than one from the same table. One here.
I think it's last year I wrote an article about you being involved with being a music director for Spinners, for a movie and for a documentary, 1 or 2 documentary series. And something that maybe somebody else is going to talk about later as well, but the process of artists registering their music and then making their music available for sync deals. What is your take on what artists must do to make sure that they can get the music into those spaces?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a very, very important question, I feel. So just to touch on what Rainer said over there, I also do music for film and television as well. So when I was approached by the producers and the directors of the series Spinners, there's a very specific soundtrack that they wanted for the series. So we were met with a lot of challenges. Unfortunately, a lot of artists didn't make it because the music wasn't registered. And of course, when you're speaking to different companies, they want to make sure that all the paperwork is in place because it's a risk on both ends for the company and for you, the artist, as well. So for artists in the room or people that want to have these conversations, I just feel it is very, very important to do the research and just to do all the necessary registrations. And at the end of the day, you are then able to protect your work as well. So there's a lot of work that's in, I see on social media, there's a lot of people's compositions being used on all these different platforms, and a lot of young artists specifically don't understand why it's happening, or they don't have a way to kind of, I would say, fight back because the paperwork is not in place and they're not, they're not taking the time out to come to events such as this and also to network with the people that can give them the great guidance. So I think for people in the room, if you do have the opportunity, please speak to young artists and make them aware of this. And I think it's very important for us, as individuals in the room, to connect and also build on that to make sure, that we are able to help these artists grow, within those spaces. Yeah.
Hello, DJ. Seeing that, understanding your story, right? And coming from the era of oppression, I wanted to ask that today we are faced with crime, like gun violence from places from Khayelitsha all the way up to Manenberg. And also there's a separation there's a divide between the black community and the colored community as well. I wanted to ask you, as a pioneer of hip hop as well, and teaching and breakdancing as well, and also graffiti too. And you have your name as prominent as it is today and one of the most celebrated people in this culture of ours in hip hop. I wanted to ask you, how is the new generation, how would we bring together the communities, colored community and the black community as well, together or unify under this one umbrella that we call hip hop?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for that. In all honesty, I do recognize that there is a divide, and thankfully, I've been in a space and also acting, interacting with people that come from all these different areas, from Kalicha, Gooks, Langa, all these places. And when we come together at the events and the park jams, there wasn't really a sense of the divide, although I fully am aware that it exists. And I think it's going to be on all of us, as those that are aware and people that are in a position to be able to create platforms, whether it's podcasts, television, events, and all this, to make sure that we reach out, to all the artists as well, and keep it fair, keep it integrated, if we wish to do so. I think it is the right thing. And I also think that we need to do this in the spirit of humanity. It needs to be organic, it needs to be genuine, and it needs to be done with the right intent, I think, in order for people to be able to come together that way and not do it as a token, because then you feel, the energy is not right, something's not right about it. So I think it's something worth aspiring to and something worth working towards.
Hi, Tato. Firstly, thank you for doing what you do. You're a legend. I remember watching you on TV when you do the mixes. Everything is amazing. So my question is, how do we maybe work with you, especially when it comes to the non-profit, in doing community events, for the underprivileged? So how do we work with you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for that, and also thank you for reaching out. We can definitely exchange numbers. It will be amazing. Our organization is GCAP. It stands for the Great Cape Ambassadors Program. www.gcap.org.za. You can find us on all the social media platforms. If you don't get my number, please DM me on Instagram. I usually respond on Insta, and we can definitely see, how we can work. How we can work together. Thank you so much for that. DJ Easy was a lady,
Hello. So my name is Savina. I'm a musician, music teacher in Helderberg area. I was just wondering, so I do have quite big interest in giving back, like starting community projects and things like that. But for me to get started, I kind of need steps. I'm an overthinker, so I never get going unless I actually get going. So if you could maybe give me just the top 3 steps that, what you would start doing to get to that point of running a project, having the project running and all that. Pertaining to content, renting a space, whatever it is, how would you start something like that?
Yeah, sure. We didn't quite understand the dynamics of running a non-profit organization. We became fully compliant about 5-6 months ago. Myself and my wife, we decided that we want to do this, and we just did it out of passion. And because of our link to the communities and working with different entities, we just go out there, activate, do all these different workshops, and we find ourselves in all these different spaces doing these things. And on the journey, we met a gentleman called Mr. Jason Falcon. He worked for the Tanglewood Children's Hospital Trust. We built up a relationship with this gentleman, and he practically guided us on how we needed to become organized and structured, similar to how you would approach the business or the music. I think it's very, very important to go through the necessary steps to become fully compliant as well as an organization. It just means that you'll be able to have different conversations with entities as well. And a huge amount of your time and your energy, apart from getting the administrative components in place and activating on the ground as well, is getting, I would say, just spending a lot of time and energy in finding ways to raise the necessary funds as well, because that's what it all boils down to. Without the necessary funding, you won't be able to be, I would say, as consistent and as impactful as you need to be. So we kind of going through those stages right now where we're having these conversations and both with the partners, and we also brought experienced people on board to help us guide us through those processes. But I would say if you, it's also good to build experience on the ground and with the community as well. I always tell people to be the interest to get your hands dirty, because then you understand how things need to be done from the ground up. So that's kind of our journey at the moment, and there's a lot of people doing phenomenal things. We can just link up with people through social media. Thankfully, the platform exists where we can have these types of requests and interactions going back and forth as a way to link with people doing things that we might be interested in.
Hello, Mr. DJ. My question is mostly coming from a place of a fan of hip hop specifically. As a veteran of sorts yourself, my question is, given that at its inception, essentially, South African hip hop, while it does have a lot of influence from other parts of the world, specifically like America and the UK, it always had its unique sound, right? Quite always has influences from existing African music styles, etc. In today's day and age, though, that sort of influence from African music styles has we've drifted away from that hip-hop-wise in a lot of ways, and my question to you is, do you think that that is something that's going to continue as a trend in hip-hop music? And if so, not necessarily is that a good or bad thing, but what effect do you think that'll have on the genre as a whole as time goes on?
Wow, thank you for that question. I have different thoughts. On that. I think it will be. I'm only speaking from personal experience, though. I just want to use myself and Prophets of the City as an example. The irony out of all of this is the fact that our fan base, our biggest fan base, was Denmark and Norway, as far north as you can go. And it doesn't become more white than that. And it was the weirdest thing ever. But then you realize that although they can't understand what we are saying, but they are connecting with the vibe, the energy, the aesthetic, the sound, and what you're bringing through the music, because we brought that, I would say, components of South Africa and our culture that came through the music. So we sampled a lot of African and South African music. We sampled Stimela. There was a song called Understand Where I'm Coming From that won international awards as well. So I just want to use that as an example in terms of how the international audiences gravitate towards a sound that feel very interested in. And when we started speaking to people over there, they said they really appreciate us coming over there and doing these performances and having these different types of discussions and interactions, because for them it doesn't make sense if we as a South African or African band or crew goes to the US, the UK and all these Western countries trying to sound like a Tupac or Snoop or a little this and a little that, because in their country and in their cultures they have thousands of young people that already sound like that. And that's also a little bit of a setback as well. And I think that we are feeling that in South Africa, within the South African hip-hop landscape at the moment. So I think we need to put in a little bit more effort to embrace who we are, because we barely scratched the surface of what South Africa and what Africa as a continent has to offer in terms of the music. There's so much to learn from, extract from, and also to exhibit and present on not just the international platforms, but I would say across the country and Africa itself. I hope that answers the question, but thank you for that.
Cool. Thanks. We got one last question.
Yeah, I'm understanding. Good day, everybody. Hope everybody's still doing well. Such a fan. Thank you. My question is more personal for me. My name is Leabona, I go by Leah M. I am a DJ. And when I started, I used to play hip-hop. So I'm a hip-hop, old school underground boom bap. That's why you are one of my favorites. But what I've noticed is that, I think you touched on it a little bit when you spoke about, because we used to do it for a passion. And I have found that it's an issue for a lot of hip-hop DJs, especially if you play strictly hip-hop, because majority of hip-hop events or just the landscape around hip-hop, we have this deep-rooted thing that we're doing it for the love, we're doing it for passion, but it never really gets to it being monetized or for hip-hop artists to get to a level where they can actually, live off their craft and all of that. And some of us will adapt, like now when I figured that out, I realized that, okay, I need to learn other genres. I need to be able to play deep house, play, Afro house and play everything else, which then creates demand for me, and now I'm a working DJ. But generally my passion is old school hip hop. So my question is, what advice would you have for someone like me to say, maybe this is how you can set yourself up as a hip-hop DJ who plays that type of music? Because I also know the type of music that I like. I can't walk into a club or a Cubana and decide to walk in there and pull dilated people or pull L-Zion and people are like, what are you doing? So what advice would you have for me to say, how do I maneuver that space to say I can remain true to what it is that I'm passionate about and that I love and still be able to make, a living out of it with the hip-hop landscape that we have in South Africa?
Wow. Thank you so much for that. That's a broad-based question right there. And I think in terms of playing other genres, I don't think you need to feel guilty about doing so, because hip-hop music and the culture itself have been influenced by so many different genres anyway. And of course we can trace the rhythm and we can trace the energy back to Africa. But disco, funk, reggae, soul, she was South American rhythms, the list goes on and on and on. All of that had an influence on hip-hop music. So from that perspective, I think it's actually okay. And as far as being a DJ goes, I think the first thing is we have to love music irrespective. And also being a hip-hop DJ, I think we need to be a little bit more liberal as well when it comes to exploring and listening to different genres. And if you choose to play more genres and to be in the open format arena, then it's actually okay, because I'm in that space anyway. As far as my journey goes, so before I latched onto hip-hop culture and that particular sound, I was playing the sound of the day, which was jazz and disco and a little bit of funk and all of that type of stuff. So now, going through the journey, becoming this, I would say the student of hip-hop as a culture, and just latching onto the boom bap sound. It was a sound that was quite huge globally at one stage. We call that the golden era of the music. Internationally, and I also think if we now want to create opportunities for that sound to reach, I would say, audiences, it would probably be in our interest to work together to create events for people that wish to come to those types of parties, and they are out there. And it also depends on how we market those events as well. And we're living in a cool time where it's easy to communicate and market, and we can take advantage of our social media platforms. I think it's very important for us to explore that if we wish to do so. And I think it's also very important to make people understand when you come and support these events, just don't ask everybody if you can get the name on the guest list, or if they invite you, you're bringing like 20, 30 friends because we know the DJ, whatever the case may be. In order for us to be able to cover our bills and to make sure that everybody working on the production, including the DJs, everybody gets paid at the end of the day. So there's quite a lot to do, and there's a lot of opportunities to unlock in that space as well. But then it all comes through networking, and I know that there's a lot of young artists that have now embraced that boom bap sound, and I hear it in Cape Town City, which means all these elements and the interest and the art, it's all hovering, it needs a space. So there's a void that could possibly be filled by people who's got the time, experience, and the energy to take advantage of that and bring that sound and that culture together.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grandmaster DJ Reddy Green.